Hi, everyone. I am Aleksandra Zaborowska, and I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow at Duke University. And today, I will be talking to you about the hidden price of your food and how food justice can build a more sustainable and peaceful future. I want to talk about something we all partake in every single day, eating. But I want to go beyond what we see at the grocery store and ask, what's the real cost of our food? The costs we don't see, paid by our environment, our health, and our communities. When we buy food, we're not paying for the full story. Not for the fertilizers that leach into rivers, or the pesticides that can cause cancer in farm workers, or for the low wages paid to the people who grow and harvest our food. These costs show up elsewhere, in rising healthcare bills, in polluted air and water, and in systems of racial and economic inequality. And it's not like farmers are winning either. Despite doing essential work, they operate on razor-thin margins. The USDA estimates that for every dollar we spend on food, farmers receive only 14 to 16 cents. That used to be closer to 40 cents in the 1950s. So no, it's not just an environmental or economic issue. It is a matter of justice. But what actually is food justice? Food justice means everyone, regardless of income or race, should have access to healthy, affordable, and culturally meaningful food produced through fair and sustainable system. It's deeply tied to environmental justice, because the communities most harmed by pollution and climate change are often the ones least responsible for it. We throw around the word sustainability as a buzzword, but real sustainability means something more than organic labels that we see in stores. It means protecting ecosystems, workers, and cultural traditions. As Raj Patel puts it, the solution to food crisis lies in communities being able to grow food in ways that are sustainable, just, and adapted to their local environments. Movements like La Via Campesina show us just this, that agroecology, for example, is about more than soil health. It's about community, it's about autonomy and culture, and we've become really disconnected from the food that nourishes us. And yes, food is political because it touches everything from land to health, labor, climate, to human dignity. Today, I want to take you on a journey from the global food system to what's happening right here in North Carolina. Because even though the problems may feel vast, the solutions start at home. But first, let me show you where my passion, or maybe some people would say obsession, for food systems really began. So a little bit of my personal story. When I asked my family, hi mom, to dig up childhood photos to show my early love of food and the soil, they really just laughed, honestly. It was the early 90s, and they were like, no one took pictures of the everyday. And they were right. All I have are stories and a few blurry photos that hint at how I grew up. In the very left corner of this slide, there's an image of the I made it my moment. My team smiling after we finally passed the nature restoration law, my last European Parliament plenary session in Strasbourg, before I moved here to North Carolina. I swear that's when I got my first real forehead wrinkles, but it was worth every sleepless night. I was raised by the village, like now we like to call it. It literally was my life. Food was everything to us. I grew up in the mountains of Poland, where summers meant eating unwashed fruits and vegetables from the garden or the neighbors, which didn't count as stealing, I promise. And if you didn't like parsley or carrots, you still had to pick them until you learned to like them. And yeah, we drank fresh milk from the neighbor's cow, and less enjoyably, fresh goat milk from our own goat, Pearl. I miss you, Pearl. A core childhood trauma, I have to say. First, I thought everyone grew up like that, connected to the land and the seasons. But then I moved to the city for university. I realized how rare that was. My friends had never tasted tomatoes like the ones from my aunt's garden. It took me years, though, and it wasn't easy to turn that passion into my work. But over 5 years ago, I committed to changing the food system full time. And here in Durham, both at Duke and beyond, I found a community that shares that mission. One that in many ways feels like home to me. And that's what brings me to this work and to this room today. For many Indigenous and marginalized communities, peace begins with access to nutritious food, a basic need too often denied through systemic neglect. When we talk about peace building, we often overlook how critical access to food is in building stable and healthy communities. But food is foundational. When people don't have access to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food, we see rising health disparities, deepening poverty, and the erosion of trust in institutions. In the Navajo Nation, which spans 27,000 square miles across New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, which for context is roughly the size of West Virginia, with more than 170,000 residents, are served by only 13 grocery stores. That's one store every 2,000 square miles. This isn't just a food desert. It's an example of food apartheid, a systemic disinvestment that leaves Indigenous communities without access to affordable and nutritious food. Despite the vast lands they inhabit, many of these areas are arid or ecologically fragile, making large-scale agriculture very difficult. Traditional foodways, which once were supported by the mobility and seasonal harvesting across the territories, were disrupted by forced settlement, land dispossession, and resource extraction. These changes created a dependency on grocery stores that often can't economically survive in remote areas with such sparse populations, leaving the communities caught in a cycle of limited access and very high food costs. Most residents rely on gas stations and convenience stores, which primarily offer processed and sugary foods. As a result, 1 in 5 Navajo adults now suffers from type 2 diabetes, heart diseases, and very high rates of obesity. This is not a matter of personal choice. It is a policy failure. When communities are denied access to healthy food, their health, economy, and their cultural well-being, they all suffer. Food justice is a form of peace building, and it means restoring access, dignity, and the ability for the communities to nourish themselves on their own terms. So how can we begin to measure and repair these systemic harms? One way is to visualize it through true cost accounting. True cost accounting is a framework for uncovering the full impact of food production. Is it economic, social, and environmental? Right now, food prices only reflect direct costs like land, labor, packaging, and the transportation. But they don't account for externalities, which are unintended costs borne by the society, not paid by the producer or the consumer. Let's take now an example of a cheap hamburger we all like, most of us at least. That $1 burger does not include the greenhouse gas emissions, the deforestation, the water use and the contamination of water, the labor exploitation in meatpacking plants. None of these are reflected in the sticker price that we see, but they are very real costs absorbed by society. True cost accounting helps us measure and visualize these hidden costs so we can make more informed decisions and also advocate for better policies. In Amsterdam, there is a grocery store called the True Price Store that shows both the market price and the true cost of food. For example, a chocolate bar may cost €2 at market price, but its true cost, accounting for both the environmental harm and labor injustice, could be around €3.60. Customers then can choose to pay the true price, supporting a fairer system if they can. So now let's zoom in and look at how these hidden costs show up right here in North Carolina. We are a state rich in agriculture, famous for sweet potatoes, tobacco, and hog production. But we are also a state deeply affected by food injustice. In Eastern North Carolina, industrial hog farms like those run by Smithfield produce staggering amount of waste. Much of it is stored in open-air lagoons, like in the picture here, and sprayed onto nearby fields. These operations are overwhelmingly located near Black, Indigenous, and low-income communities, especially in Dumpling and Sampson counties, like here in the slide showing the area of Kohari River and Catawba College. These residents suffer from contaminated water, asthma, and other health-related issues, despite numerous lawsuits, including one supported by the Duke Environmental Law and Policy Clinic that I used to be a part of. These communities continue to carry the burden. This is environmental injustice, or should I even say racism? And it's happening right here in our backyard. To make this more tangible, let's look at one specific and beloved crop, the sweet potato. So North Carolina grows over 60% of the whole US supply. At the store, it might cost around 90 cents per pound, but that price does not reflect the true cost. It doesn't show the environmental cost, where industrial farms often use synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and contaminate our groundwater, harm ecosystems, and deplete the soil health over time. There are also labor costs that are not visible. Many farm workers in the sweet potato industry are migrant laborers. They pay low wages, sometimes lacking legal status or labor protection. They often work in extremely hard conditions. It's really hot in here in North Carolina, with inadequate housing, no healthcare access, and there are also borne health costs. While sweet potatoes are very nutritious, many North Carolinians, especially in both low-income, rural, and urban communities, they don't have regular access to fresh produce. This contributes to a cycle of poor diet, chronic disease, and high public healthcare costs. If we accounted for all these costs thoroughly, a pound of sweet potato probably would cost around $2 or more. And that price would reflect the sustainability, the dignity, and the well-being, not just efficiency of the production. Now that we've broken down the true cost of something as familiar to us as a sweet potato, let's think bigger. What could be our role in shaping the system itself? We've uncovered the hidden cost of food, but awareness alone won't change the system. We need to act now. So as consumers, you can choose local, seasonal, and values-aligned food when you can. As students, educators, and professionals, bring true cost accounting and food justice into your classroom, into your clinics, your nonprofits, your policy work. This really affects all the sectors. As community members, we can organize, we can speak up, we can support systemic reforms like ending some of the subsidies for industrial agriculture or providing the same amount of subsidies to regenerative small-scale farming. Really, vote with your dollar. Food is not just a product, it is a relationship. It connects us to the land, to one another, and to the kind of the world we want to build. So let's try to value it accordingly. What does taking action actually could look like here in North Carolina? This isn't just about personal responsibility. It is about structural change, but still we can start where we are. Here in the Triangle area, you can support, for example, by joining the subscription to the community-supported agriculture, for example, Tallgrass Food Box, or Sankofa Farms in Cedar Grove, or Sweet Peas Urban Gardens, or Ten Mothers Farm. All of those farms are owned by first-generation farmers. Some of them are Black and Latina-owned, small-scale community-supported agriculture farms. But these aren't just farms. There are local models of food justice in action that seeks for a healthier, more equitable future. Because in the end, food justice isn't just about what's on our plates. It's about power, it's about dignity, and who gets to thrive. And the work we do here locally is how we begin to build that just future. One meal, one community, one farm at a time, as part of a more equitable, harmonious, and peaceful world. Thank you.